You say yes. Again. Another favor. Another weekend sacrifice to someone else's urgent need that somehow always becomes your responsibility. You meant to say no. The word was right there. But in the half second before you spoke, something else took over, the fear of disappointing them, the worry you'd seem difficult or selfish, the vague guilt that saying no makes you a bad person. So you said yes. And now you're drowning in commitments you never wanted, resentments you can't voice, and a schedule that serves everyone except you. This isn't generosity. This is self-erasure disguised as kindness. And here's what makes it worse, the people you keep saying yes to don't respect you more for it. They've learned you're the one who always gives in. They've stopped asking others because you're easier. Your yeses have taught them that your boundaries don't exist. Confucius saw this pattern destroy lives, families, and governments. Not the dramatic refusals, the absence of them. He watched people collapse under obligations they never should have accepted, watched relationships sour because no one knew where one person ended and another began. His response wasn't to preach selfishness. It was to teach something far more sophisticated, the knowledge of what is fitting and appropriate in each relationship and context. In the Analects, he describes leadership through an image. He who governs by virtue is like the North Star, which remains in its place while all the other stars revolve around it. Think about that. The North Star doesn't chase the other stars. It doesn't adjust its position based on their movements. It holds its place with such clarity that everything else orients around it. That's what we're learning today, how to hold your position, your boundaries, your limits, your non-negotiables, with such clarity that others naturally adjust around you, rather than you constantly contorting yourself to accommodate them. This isn't about becoming rigid or callous. It's about knowing the difference between being rightly firm and being merely harsh. Between holding boundaries that protect you and wielding refusals that damage relationships unnecessarily. Today's video goes deep on 5 practices that transform how you set boundaries. By the end, you'll understand why saying no actually strengthens relationships rather than weakening them, and why the guilt you feel when refusing isn't virtue, it's conditioning you can unlearn. Let's begin. Why no feels impossible, the biology and the culture. Before we can learn to say no effectively, we need to understand why it feels so difficult in the first place. The resistance isn't just in your head. It's biological, cultural, and relational, 3 forces working together to make yes feel like the only safe answer. The biological trap. When someone asks you for something, especially someone you know or someone in authority, your brain processes it as a social threat. Research on social rejection shows that saying no activates similar neural circuits to physical pain. Your amygdala flags the potential for social disconnection, and your body responds accordingly. You feel the physical sensation, the tightening in your chest, the slight panic, the urge to smooth things over quickly. Your brain is telling you, saying no is dangerous. It might cost you this relationship. This isn't weakness. It's evolutionary psychology. For most of human history, being cast out of the group meant death. Your ancestors who were overly concerned with social harmony survived. Your ancestors who casually said no to the tribe didn't pass on their genes. But here's the problem, your Stone Age brain can't distinguish between saying no to helping move furniture and being exiled from the tribe to die alone. It treats both as existential threats. And that physiological response, the racing heart, the guilty feeling, the desperate urge to make them happy, isn't telling you the truth about the situation. It's triggering an alarm designed for a different world entirely. The cultural layer. Now add culture. Most societies, though they vary in specifics, have socialized children, particularly girls and women, to be accommodating. To be nice. To put others' needs first. To smooth conflicts rather than create them. The message is subtle but pervasive, good people say yes. Selfish people say no. If you care about others, you'll sacrifice for them. If you have to set a boundary, you're probably being unreasonable. This is reinforced thousands of times in children's books where the hero always helps, in workplaces that reward team players who stay late, in families where the person who gives endlessly is praised as the strong one whilst their breaking point is ignored. The culture builds a prison where yes is virtue and no is vice. The relational web. Finally, there's the specific relationship. The person asking isn't abstract, they're your boss, your parent, your friend, your partner. There's history. There's context. There's the weight of what this relationship means to you. And often, there's asymmetry. They have power you don't, financial, positional, emotional. Or they're in genuine need, and you're not heartless, so how can you refuse? The request may be reasonable in isolation. But you're not in isolation. You're already carrying 15 other yeses, and this new one, reasonable as it is, will break you. But they don't see those 15 other yeses. They only see their one request. And from their perspective, you're being difficult. What Confucius observed. The master saw all of this in the courts and families of ancient China. He saw officials who couldn't say no to rulers, even when the command was unjust. He saw children who couldn't set boundaries with parents, even when the demands were crushing. He saw friends who destroyed themselves trying to help everyone. And he saw the cost: burnout, resentment, relationships that curdled because no one knew where help ended and exploitation began. His solution wasn't to ignore social bonds or become callously independent. It was to introduce precision. To teach people to distinguish between obligations that genuinely serve harmony, these deserve yes. Requests that violate what is fitting and appropriate, these deserve no. The many situations in between that require judgment, not reflex. This required a framework. Not just set boundaries, which is vague and unhelpful, but a system for knowing what boundaries to set, how to communicate them, and how to maintain them without becoming either a doormat or a tyrant. That's what we're learning today. And the first step is understanding exactly what you owe to whom. Practice 1. Know what's fitting, understand your obligations. The Confucian concept, often translated as ritual or propriety, is really about knowing what is fitting and appropriate given the specific relationship, context, and roles involved. It's not one universal boundary for all situations. It's the wisdom to know that you owe different things to different people, and that knowing these distinctions protects both you and them. Here's what trips people up: we've been told that everyone deserves the same treatment, that all relationships should get equal access to us. But that's not wisdom, it's confusion. And it leads to either complete exhaustion or resentment. The framework of relationships. Confucius identified key relationship types, each with specific, non-identical obligations. 1. Authority relationships, employer and employee, leader and follower. 2. Parent and child. 3. Partners, spouses, long-term romantic relationships. 4. Hierarchical peer relationships, senior and junior in any context. 5. Friend and friend. The insight is this: what you owe your employer is not what you owe your friend. What you owe your parent is not what you owe your partner. The boundaries are different because the relationships are different. Modern life has blurred these distinctions catastrophically. We're told that saying no to anyone, for any reason, is setting healthy boundaries. But this flattens relationships into a uniform mass, and it's neither wise nor sustainable. Your employer has a legitimate claim on your work hours. Your friend does not. Your elderly parent may have a legitimate claim on some caregiving. Your adult sibling's third financial crisis this year probably doesn't have a claim on your savings. The art is knowing these distinctions. The 3 questions of appropriateness. When someone makes a request, before you respond, ask. Question 1. What is the nature of our relationship? Is this person someone to whom I have formal obligation, employer, client, family member requiring care? Someone to whom I have informal but genuine obligation, close friend, partner? Someone to whom I have minimal obligation, acquaintance, distant colleague, stranger? This isn't about coldness. It's about precision. Not everyone gets the same access to your time, energy, or resources. Question 2. What is fitting given this relationship? Even within a relationship type, there are limits. An employer can ask you to work during work hours. They cannot ask you to cancel your wedding to meet a deadline. A friend can ask you to help them move house once. They cannot ask you to help them move house every 6 months because they keep making impulsive decisions. What's fitting isn't just about what's technically possible for you to give. It's about what preserves the proper balance and mutual respect of the relationship. Pay attention to that word, balance. If a relationship is constantly demanding sacrifice in one direction, something has gone wrong. That's not a relationship, that's extraction. Question 3. What is my current capacity? Even if a request is fitting for the relationship, you might not have capacity. You're ill, overwhelmed, or already stretched. This includes self-knowledge, knowing when yes would harm you so badly that you'd become resentful or unable to fulfill other genuine obligations. Here's something most people miss: protecting your capacity isn't selfish. It's responsible. Because if you say yes when you genuinely can't, you'll either do it poorly, do it resentfully, or collapse, and then you're useful to no one. Modern applications. Work example, the after-hours email. Your manager emails at 9 p.m. on Friday, "Can you review this deck before Monday's client meeting?" Without this framework, you panic. You say yes reflexively because they're your boss. You spend your weekend working. You resent it, but you never say anything because that's just how it is. With the framework, you apply the 3 questions. 1. Relationship, employer. They have legitimate claim on work during work hours. 2. What's fitting, depends. Is this an emergency, client suddenly moved meeting up? Or is this poor planning on their part? Emergency equals fitting. Poor planning does not equal fitting. 3. Capacity, you've already worked 50 hours this week. You're exhausted. If it's poor planning, you respond, "I can prioritize this first thing Monday morning and have feedback to you by 10 a.m. Will that work? You've said no to the weekend, yes to a quick turnaround Monday. The boundary is clear but not hostile. Notice what happened: you didn't refuse to help. You offered help within the appropriate scope of the relationship and your capacity. That's not selfishness, that's professionalism. Family example, the perpetual crisis. Your adult sibling calls, "I need £500. My car broke down and I can't get to work." This is the 3rd emergency in 4 months. Without the framework, you feel guilty. They're family. You give the money. You enable a pattern that's harming both of you. With the framework. 1. Relationship, sibling. There's obligation, but it's not unlimited or unidirectional. 2. What's fitting, helping with a genuine emergency once or twice equals fitting. Becoming a permanent cash machine because they won't budget does not equal fitting. 3. Capacity, you've given £1,200 already this year. You're compromising your own financial stability. You respond, "I can't keep providing emergency money. What I can do is sit down with you this weekend and help you set up a budget and emergency fund. Would that help?" You've said no to the money, yes to genuine support that addresses the root problem. You're helping them become more capable, not less. Friendship example, the emotional dumping. A friend calls every evening to vent about their relationship problems. It's the same issues, no action taken, just processing aloud. Without the framework, you listen every time because that's what friends do, right? You're exhausted and starting to avoid their calls. With the framework. 1. Relationship, friend. Mutual support is fitting. 2. What's fitting? Being available for periodic support equals fitting. Being their unpaid therapist every single day does not equal fitting. 3. Capacity, you're drained. Your own relationships are suffering because you're emotionally spent. You respond, I care about you, and I want to support you. But I'm realizing these daily calls are becoming hard for me to sustain. Can we shift to once a week, and in between, maybe you could journal or talk to a counselor? I think you need more support than I alone can provide. You've said no to daily emotional labor, yes to sustainable friendship. The mechanism, why this removes guilt. Guilt comes from feeling you're doing something wrong. But when you've applied this framework correctly, you're not doing something wrong, you're doing something right. You're maintaining the proper balance of the relationship. You're preventing the resentment that destroys relationships. Confucius taught that relationships without boundaries don't last. They collapse under exploitation, resentment, or exhaustion. Understanding what's appropriate is what makes relationships sustainable across years and decades. When you say no through this framework, you're protecting the relationship, not damaging it. And here's the test: if someone gets angry when you set an appropriate boundary, that tells you something important. They weren't interested in a balanced relationship, they were interested in your compliance. Practice 2. The grammar of no, 3 levels of refusal. Confucius was a master of linguistic precision. He understood that how you say no matters as much as whether you say no. The same refusal can preserve a relationship or shatter it depending on the words you choose. This is where most people fail. They swing between two extremes. Over-explaining and apologizing until the no is buried under guilt and negotiation. Blunt refusal that's technically clear but socially destructive. The Confucian way is neither. It's a grammar of refusal that's clear, dignified, and appropriate to the situation. Think of these as 3 different tools. You wouldn't use a sledgehammer to hang a picture frame, and you wouldn't use a tack hammer to demolish a wall. Same with boundaries, different situations require different levels of force. Level 1, the soft boundary. When to use: colleagues, acquaintances, service relationships, anyone where you want to remain cordial but aren't close enough to owe detailed explanation. Structure: acknowledge plus affirm plus decline plus alternative. Example situation: a colleague asks you to cover their shift for the 3rd time this month. The soft boundary: I appreciate you thinking of me. I know you're in a bind. I'm not able to cover Friday. Have you tried asking James or posting in the team chat? What this does: shows you heard them. Validates their difficulty without accepting it as your responsibility. Makes the no unambiguous but not harsh. Redirects them helpfully. The key here is brevity. You're not explaining why you can't do it. You're not apologizing. You're simply declining and offering a path forward that doesn't involve you. Level 2, the firm boundary. When to use: professional relationships, family members you respect, anyone where vagueness would be seen as weakness or invite negotiation you don't want. Structure: clear decline plus brief reason plus what you can offer, if anything. Example situation: your boss asks you to take on a major project when you're already at capacity. The firm boundary: I can't take this on right now. I'm currently at capacity with the Henderson account and the queue for reporting, both with hard deadlines. If you want me to take this on, we'd need to discuss deprioritizing one of those, or pushing this project's timeline to January. What this does? No ambiguity. Can't, not, it's difficult, or I'm not sure. Reason is factual, workload, not emotional, feeling overwhelmed. Offers a path forward that respects both parties' needs. Forces them to make the trade-off explicit if they push. Notice the difference from level 1. You've explained your reasoning because the relationship warrants it. But you haven't apologized, and you've made clear that saying yes would require them to give something up in return. Level 3, the hard boundary. When to use: repeated boundary violations, manipulative relationships, anyone who has proven they'll use softness against you. Structure: direct decline plus consequence if needed plus no negotiation. Example situation: a family member has ignored previous boundaries and keeps asking for money. The hard boundary: I'm not lending you money. We've talked about this before, and that hasn't changed. If you keep asking, I'll need to take space from our conversations. What this does? Absolutely no softening language. References pattern: this isn't the first time. Names a consequence that you're willing and able to enforce. No alternative offered because alternatives have been exploited. This feels harsh. It's meant to. You only reach level 3 when levels 1 and 2 have failed repeatedly. At this point, protecting yourself requires force. The common mistakes. Let me show you what doesn't work, because you'll recognize yourself in at least one of these. Mistake 1, the apologetic decline. I'm so sorry, I just don't think I can. I feel terrible about this. I wish I could help, but I'm just so overwhelmed right now. I'm really sorry. This invites negotiation. It signals that you don't believe in your own boundary. They'll push because you've shown the boundary is negotiable. Mistake 2, the vague maybe. I'm not sure. Let me see. I'll try to get back to you. This isn't a no. It's a delayed yes. And it keeps you in limbo whilst they wait, then follow up, then ask again. If it's a no, say no now. Don't make them chase you. That's actually less kind than a clear refusal. Mistake 3, the hostile refusal. Absolutely not. I can't believe you'd even ask. Do I look like I have time for this? This might feel satisfying in the moment, but it damages the relationship beyond the current request. Unless this person has been genuinely harmful and you're ending the relationship entirely, this level of hostility is excessive. The script's in action. Let me give you the same situation at all 3 levels so you can see the difference. Professional context: declining additional work. Soft: thanks for thinking of me for the new audit. I'm at capacity this quarter, but I'd recommend Sarah. She's been looking for something in this area. Firm: I can't take on the audit right now. My current projects run through December. If this is urgent, let's discuss which of my existing projects to reassign. Otherwise, I can look at this in Q1. Hard: I'm not taking on additional work. We discussed this when I told you my workload wasn't sustainable. If additional projects keep landing on my desk without something being removed, we need to escalate this conversation to HR. Personal context: declining social obligation. Soft: I appreciate the invite to your party. I won't be able to make it this time, but I hope it goes brilliantly. Firm: I need to say no to the party. I've had back-to-back weekends of obligations and I need a quiet Saturday to recharge. I'd love to catch up one-on-one soon though, coffee next week. Hard: I'm not coming to the party. I've said before that I need advance notice for social plans, and this was same week. I need you to respect that going forward. Family context: declining caregiving request. Soft: I know you need help with dad's appointments. I can't do Thursdays regularly, but I can take the appointment on the 15th. Have you talked to Sarah about rotating? Firm: I can't be the primary person for Dad's medical appointments. I can commit to 1 appointment per month. We need to divide this among the 3 of us or look into a medical escort service. Hard, I've said I can do 1 appointment per month. Calling me the day before each time isn't going to change that. I'll honor the appointments I've committed to, but I won't respond to last-minute requests anymore. Practice exercise. Think of one situation where you said yes but wish you'd said no. Which level boundary would have been appropriate? Now here's the hard part, say the words out loud. Right now. Alone in your room if you need to. Get your mouth used to forming the words. Because here's what most people don't realize, the words feel impossible the first time. They feel cruel, harsh, selfish. But that's just unfamiliarity. Say them 10 times out loud, and they start feeling normal. Say them 100 times, and they become automatic. The guilt you feel isn't moral guidance. It's just your brain noticing something unfamiliar and labeling it as dangerous. The mechanism, why grammar matters. Confucius taught that language shapes reality. Vague boundaries create vague relationships. Clear boundaries create clear relationships. When your words match your intent, when your no is structured to communicate respect for both yourself and the other person, guilt evaporates. You're not being mean. You're being precise. And precision is a form of respect. The person who can say no clearly is actually easier to have a relationship with than the person who says vague maybes or resentful yeses. Because with clear refusals, people know where they stand. There's no guessing, no manipulation, no confusion. Clarity is kindness. Even when the answer is no. Practice 3. Distinguish obligation from manipulation. Not all requests are created equal. Some come from genuine need within a legitimate relationship. Others come from manipulation, whether conscious or unconscious. Confucius was alert to this. He warned repeatedly against those who use the language of virtue, duty, loyalty, love, friendship, to extract things that virtue doesn't actually require. The manipulator's genius is making you feel guilty for having boundaries at all. They've convinced you that saying no makes you a bad person. But refusing manipulation isn't cruelty, it's wisdom. And here's what you need to understand, manipulation isn't always malicious. Sometimes people manipulate out of desperation, anxiety, or patterns they learned in childhood. They're not evil. But you still don't have to comply. The markers of manipulation. Not every difficult request is manipulation. Sometimes people genuinely need help, and asking feels awkward for them too. But manipulation has patterns. Learn to recognize them. Pattern 1, the guilt trip. After everything I've done for you, you can't do this one thing. I guess I'll just have to figure it out myself. Again. I thought you cared about me, but clearly I was wrong. This language weaponizes the relationship. It says, you owe me, and if you don't pay up, you're morally deficient. Genuine requests acknowledge your autonomy. I know this is a big ask. Manipulation denies your autonomy. You have no right to refuse. The difference is subtle but crucial. One respects that you're a separate person with your own needs. The other treats you as an extension of their needs. Pattern 2, the emergency escalation. Every request is urgent. Every need is a crisis. There's never time for you to think, evaluate your capacity, or suggest alternatives. I need an answer right now. If you can't help me today, it'll be too late. This is life or death. When it isn't. Genuine emergencies are rare and specific. Manipulative emergencies are constant and vague. The manufactured urgency is designed to bypass your critical thinking. Ask yourself, if this person had planned ahead, would this still be an emergency? If the answer is no, it's not an emergency, it's poor planning being made your problem. Pattern 3. The moving target. You agree to help with X, suddenly it becomes X, Y, and Z. Whilst you're picking up my groceries, could you also? Since you're already helping, would you mind? The initial request was the hook. Once you've said yes, the scope expands because saying no now feels petty. Genuine requests have clear boundaries. Manipulation dissolves boundaries once you're committed. Pattern 4. The relationship hostage. If you really loved me, a true friend would. Family doesn't say no to family. This makes the relationship itself conditional on your compliance. It says, our bond exists only if you do what I want. Genuine relationships survive disagreement. Manipulative ones threaten dissolution at every boundary. Here's the test. If someone says, if you cared about me, you'd do this, flip it. If they cared about you, would they ask you to do something that harms you? Would they threaten the relationship because you can't meet one request? Real care is bidirectional. Manipulation pretends to be care but only flows one way. The Confucian response: rectification of names. When someone manipulates, they're misusing language. They're calling something love when it's control, need when it's want, emergency when it's poor planning. Confucius' principle of rectification of names applies here. Before you can respond appropriately, you must name the thing correctly. Step 1. Name it internally. When you feel that guilty, pressured, trapped feeling, pause and ask, is this a genuine request from someone I have obligation to? Or is this manipulation dressed up as need? If it's the latter, name it, this is manipulation. I'm being guilt-tripped, rushed, exploited. Naming it breaks its power. Manipulation works in the fog. Clarity dismantles it. This step is private. You don't need to tell them you're manipulating me, that usually escalates things. But you need to tell yourself the truth about what's happening. Step 2. Respond to reality, not performance. When someone guilt-trips you, they're performing distress to trigger your care response. Don't respond to the performance. Respond to the underlying request. Guilt trip, I guess I'll just struggle alone. Again. Like always. You don't need to address the melodrama. Address the request, I hear you need help with X. I can't do that, but here's what I can offer, why will that work? You've acknowledged the need without accepting blame for not meeting it on their terms. Watch what happens. If they were genuinely asking for help, they'll appreciate your alternative offer. If they were manipulating, they'll reject your alternative and escalate the guilt trip. That tells you everything. Step 3. Enforce consequences for repeat manipulation. If someone repeatedly manipulates, soft boundaries won't work. They've learned to exploit softness. I've noticed that when I say no to you, you respond by making me feel guilty. I care about our relationship, but I need that pattern to stop. If it continues, I'll need to take space. Then follow through. If they guilt trip again, end the conversation, I said I needed you to stop that. I'm going now. We can talk when you're ready to respect my boundary. This feels harsh. But remember, you only reach this point after repeated violations. At some point, protecting yourself requires action, not just words. Modern applications. Work example, the scope creep manager. Your boss asks you to just quickly help with something. 2 hours later, you're still helping, your own work is delayed, and they've added 3 more tasks. Without rectification, you silently resent it but keep helping because saying no now feels awkward. With rectification, you name it, this started as quick and has become a whole project. That's scope creep. You respond, I need to stop here. This has turned into more than a quick task, and I have my own deadlines. I can pick this up tomorrow afternoon if it's still needed, or you can reassign it. You've drawn the boundary at the actual scope, not the manipulated quick framing. Family example, the guilt-tripping parent. Your mother calls, "I hardly ever see you. I suppose you're too busy for your own mother. I'll just sit here alone." Without rectification, you feel terrible and cancel your plans to visit, reinforcing the guilt trip pattern. With rectification, you name it, this is emotional manipulation. She's making me responsible for her loneliness to control my schedule. You respond, "Mum, I love you, and I want to see you regularly. I can't drop everything today, but I'm free Saturday afternoon." Would that work? If she continues, "I hear you're upset. I'm still not available today. Saturday is what I can offer." You've refused to accept the frame that declining today equals not caring. Friendship example, the constant crisis. A friend always has an emergency that needs your immediate help. Third time this month. Without rectification, you keep helping because they need you, right? You don't notice you're the only one they call, and they never return the support. With rectification, you name it, these aren't all genuine emergencies. This is a pattern of poor planning being made my problem. You respond, "I can't keep being your emergency contact. I think you need more support than one friend can provide. Have you considered talking to a therapist about the anxiety that's causing these crises?" You've named the pattern and redirected to appropriate help. The hard truth, some relationships can't survive boundaries. When you start enforcing boundaries with a habitual manipulator, one of two things happens. 1. They adjust. They realize manipulation doesn't work anymore, and they learn to interact with you honestly. 2. They escalate, then leave. The manipulation intensifies, and when it still doesn't work, they withdraw or end the relationship. If option 2 happens, grieve the loss, but understand this, the relationship was never healthy. It was a transaction. Your compliance in exchange for their presence. That's not love, friendship, or family. That's exploitation with a nice label. Confucius would say, losing a manipulative relationship is not a loss. It's freedom. And here's what often happens that surprises people: when you refuse to be manipulated, the healthy people in your life respect you more. They've been watching you get exploited, and your new boundaries actually make them trust you more, because now they know your yeses are genuine. The mechanism, why this removes guilt. Guilt is appropriate when you've done something wrong. But refusing manipulation isn't wrong, it's self-preservation. When you can distinguish genuine obligation, which deserves consideration, from manipulation, which deserves refusal, the guilty feeling transforms. It's not guilt anymore. It's clarity. And clarity doesn't need to apologize. Practice 4, build your moral inventory, know your non-negotiables. Confucius taught that the wise person has righteousness, a moral compass that guides decisions even when the pressure to comply is intense. This isn't just abstract virtue. It's practical, it's knowing what you will and won't compromise, even when saying no costs you something. Most people don't have this clarity. They decide in the moment, under pressure, with someone's disappointment staring them in the face. And in that moment, they fold. The Confucian method is different: decide your non-negotiables in advance, in calm, away from pressure. Then when the request comes, you're not deciding, you're remembering. This is the difference between reactive boundary setting, where you're constantly surprised and overwhelmed, and proactive boundary setting, where you've already decided what you stand for. The pre-decision framework. Step 1. Identify your core values. What matters most to you? Not what should matter, not what you've been told should matter, what actually matters to you. Examples. My health and rest are non-negotiable. Time with my children under age 10 is protected. My creative work gets priority over optional social obligations. I don't lend money to anyone, ever, regardless of relationship. I don't work weekends except in genuine emergency, defined as client crisis, not poor planning. I protect 30 minutes daily for exercise, meditation, or solitude. Write down 3 to 5 non-negotiables. These are your boundaries before anyone asks you to cross them. Be specific. Work-life balance is too vague. I don't check email after 7 p.m. on weekdays is a boundary you can actually defend. Step 2. Identify the pressure points. Where do you predictably fold? With whom? Under what conditions? Examples. I say yes to my boss even when unreasonable because I fear being seen as difficult. I say yes to my sister because she'll tell the family I'm selfish if I don't. I say yes to friends' social invitations even when exhausted because I don't want to seem antisocial. I say yes to my partner's family obligations even when it crowds out our own needs. Name the patterns. You can't defend against pressure you haven't identified. This step requires honesty. You might discover uncomfortable things, like you fold more with certain people because you don't respect yourself as much around them, or because you're still seeking approval you should have stopped seeking years ago. That's fine. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge. Step 3. Prescript your responses. For each pressure point, write the no you'll give next time. Boss asks weekend work. I keep weekends clear except for genuine client emergencies. Is this one? If not, I can prioritize it first thing Monday. Sister's request, I'm not able to help with that. I know you're frustrated, but my answer won't change. Social invitation when exhausted, I need to pass this time, I'm at capacity. Let's find a time that works better for both of us. Partner's family obligation, I need us to protect our immediate family time. I'm comfortable with monthly extended family events, but not more than that. The script doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to exist before the moment of pressure. Because here's what happens without prescripting. They ask, you panic, your mouth says yes whilst your brain is still processing. By the time you've realized you should have said no, you're already committed. Prescripting breaks that cycle. Modern applications. Work example, the exploitation trap. Your company has a culture of going above and beyond. You've been working 60-hour weeks for 3 months. Your manager asks you to take on another project. Without a moral inventory, you don't have a pre-decided limit, so you evaluate in the moment, under pressure, with your manager's disappointed face in front of you. You say yes. You burn out. With a moral inventory, you decided months ago, I work 45-hour weeks maximum, sustained. I can spike to 55 for 2 weeks in a genuine crisis, but not longer. When asked, you respond, I'm already over sustainable hours. Before I take on anything new, I need to either drop something or bring my hours back to sustainable. Which would you prefer? You force them to make the trade-off visible. And notice what you didn't do. You didn't explain why you need sustainable hours, justify your tiredness, or apologize for having limits. You simply stated the reality. Family example, the inheritance pressure. Your parents want you to take over the family business. You're miserable in the business. They're hurt that you'd abandon the family legacy. Without a moral inventory, you feel torn. You haven't decided what you're willing to sacrifice for family approval. You stay in the business, resenting it more each year. With a moral inventory, you decided, I will not sacrifice my career fulfillment for family expectations. I will support the family in other ways, but not by living a life I don't want. You respond, I love you, and I respect what you've built. but I'm not continuing in the business. I know that's disappointing. I'm willing to help find a buyer or train a successor, but I won't be that successor myself. The relationship may be strained, but you've protected what matters most to you. And here's what often happens: after the initial disappointment, many families come to respect the decision. Because deep down, they don't actually want you to be miserable, they just needed time to adjust their expectations. Personal example: the friendship that takes. You have a friend who always needs something but never offers support back. The friendship is one-directional. Without a moral inventory, you haven't decided what you require from friendships, so you keep giving, hoping it'll balance eventually. It doesn't. With a moral inventory, you decided friendships must be reciprocal over time. I don't need perfect 50-50, but I need evidence they'd show up for me too. After the next one-sided interaction, you respond, I care about you, but I'm realizing our friendship feels one-directional. I need relationships where support flows both ways. Can we talk about that? If they can't meet that need, the friendship naturally limits itself to a more appropriate level. And that's fine. Not every connection has to be deep. Some people are meant to be acquaintances, not close friends. The annual review. Your moral inventory isn't static. As your life changes, your non-negotiables might shift. Once a year, review. Are my non-negotiables still right for this life stage? Where did I successfully hold boundaries? Celebrate this. Where did I fold? No shame, just data. What made me vulnerable? How do I prescript differently? What new boundaries do I need as my life has changed? Example: you're promoted. Your non-negotiable might shift from I don't work weekends to I work one weekend per quarter if truly needed, but no more. That's not selling out, it's recognizing the role has changed while still having a limit. Or you have a child, and your non-negotiable shifts from I protect evenings for creative work to I protect 6 to 8 p.m. for family, then 9 to 10 p.m. for creative work 3 nights a week. Life changes. Boundaries adapt. But they still exist. The cost of righteousness. Let's be honest, holding to your principles will sometimes cost you. You might not get the promotion because you wouldn't sacrifice your boundary. You might lose a friendship that required you to be someone you're not. You might face family disappointment or anger. Confucius never promised that righteousness was easy. He promised it was sustainable. The person who abandons their principles might advance faster, might keep everyone happy longer. But they wake up at 50 and don't recognize themselves. They've spent decades serving everyone's agenda but their own. The person who holds to their principles might advance more slowly, might have fewer relationships. But the relationships they have are real, and the life they're living is actually theirs. Confucius asked, which cost can you bear? Because here's the truth, you're paying a cost either way. Either you pay the cost of disappointing others occasionally, or you pay the cost of disappointing yourself constantly. One of those costs compounds. The other doesn't. Practice moment. Right now, pause this video and write down one non-negotiable boundary. Just one. Make it specific: I don't work past 7 p.m. on weekdays, not I value work-life balance. Put it somewhere you'll see it, your phone's lock screen, a note on your desk, wherever you'll encounter it daily. When pressure comes, you're not deciding, you're remembering what you already decided. The mechanism: why pre-decision removes guilt. Guilt comes from feeling you're being arbitrary or selfish. But having a moral inventory isn't arbitrary, it's principled. You're not refusing because you're lazy or don't care. You're refusing because you've made a considered decision about what kind of life you're building. When someone pushes back, you're not defending a whim. You're defending a principle you've thought through carefully. That's not selfishness. That's integrity. And people sense the difference. When your no comes from a place of clear principle, it lands differently than when it comes from mood or avoidance. Even if they're disappointed, they respect it more. Practice 5. Cultivate humaneness in your refusal. Hold firm without cruelty. This is where most boundary-setting advice fails completely. It teaches you to say no, but it forgets that you have to keep living with these people afterwards. You're not dropping a bomb and disappearing. You're setting a boundary in a relationship you want to continue. That's where humaneness becomes essential. Humaneness, benevolence, compassion, seeing the other person's dignity, is the quality that makes a boundary feel like care rather than cruelty. Confucius taught that the wise person combines firmness with warmth. They can say no clearly whilst still honoring the other person's dignity. This isn't weakness. It's sophistication. The cruel person says no with contempt. Are you serious? I don't have time for this. Figure it out yourself. The doormat doesn't say no at all, they say yes and then resent you for asking. The person practicing humaneness says no clearly, but in a way that preserves the relationship and the other person's dignity. And here's what most people don't understand: humaneness actually makes your boundaries stronger, not weaker. When you refuse with compassion, you take away every excuse for the other person to dismiss you. The 3 elements of humane refusal. Element 1. Acknowledge their perspective before declining. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to accept their framing. But you can acknowledge that from where they're standing, the request makes sense. I understand this project feels urgent to you, and I can see why you'd think of me for it. I know you're in a really difficult spot right now, and asking for help makes sense. I can see this matters a lot to you, and I appreciate you coming to me. This isn't manipulation. It's recognition. You're saying, I see you as a full human with legitimate needs, even though I'm about to decline your request. That acknowledgement does something powerful. It separates the refusal from rejection. You're saying no to the request, not to them as a person. Watch how different this feels compared to an immediate no. When you acknowledge first, their defensive walls come down slightly. They're more ready to hear your boundary because you've shown you heard them first. Element 2. Make your decline clear but not harsh. The boundary must be unambiguous. But unambiguous doesn't require cruelty. Compare. Harsh, no. I can't believe you'd even ask me that. Clear but humane, I'm not able to help with that. Harsh, you need to stop asking me for money. You're bleeding me dry. Clear but humane, I can't lend money anymore. I know that's hard to hear, but I need to protect my own financial stability. Harsh, I'm done being your therapist. Get professional help. Clear but humane, I care about you, but I'm not equipped to provide the level of support you need. I think talking to a counselor would help you more than I can. The difference isn't in the firmness, both versions hold the boundary. The difference is that the humane version leaves the other person's dignity intact. And dignity matters. Not because you owe them comfort when they've overstepped, but because cruelty damages you as much as it damages them. When you refuse with unnecessary harshness, you carry that harshness with you. Element 3. Offer what you can, if anything. This is optional and context dependent. You're not obligated to offer alternatives. But when appropriate, showing what you can do, whilst holding the line on what you can't, demonstrates that your no isn't about not caring. It's about limits. I can't cover your shift Friday, but I can help you draft a message for the team chat to find someone. I can't lend you money, but I can sit down this weekend and help you map out a budget. I can't take on the project, but I can point you towards someone who has capacity. I can't attend every family event, but I'd like to be at the major ones, birthdays, holidays, that kind of thing. The key, The alternative must be something you genuinely want to offer and have capacity for. Don't offer out of guilt. That defeats the purpose. And if there's nothing you can offer, that's fine too. I can't help with this is a complete sentence. Modern applications. Work example, declining mentorship. A junior colleague asks you to be their mentor. You're honored but already overwhelmed. Without humaneness, I don't have time for that. Ask someone else. With humaneness, I'm genuinely flattered you'd ask, and I can see you're taking your development seriously, which I respect. I'm not able to commit to regular mentorship right now, my plate is full. What I can offer is, if you run into a specific problem where my experience would help, you can email me and I'll try to respond within a few days. Would that be useful? You've acknowledged why they asked, your experience is valuable. Declined clearly, not able to commit to regular mentorship. Offered something sustainable, occasional email advice. They may be disappointed, but they're not insulted. And you've actually given them something more valuable than a half-hearted yes, you've given them an honest no with a real alternative. Family example, declining care coordination. Your siblings want you to be the point person for your aging parents' medical appointments and care. You have young children and a demanding job. Without humaneness, I can't do it. One of you needs to step up for once. With humaneness, I understand why you'd think of me, I'm local and organized. But I need to be honest, with 2 kids under 5 and my work schedule, I can't be the primary coordinator. What I can commit to is 1 medical appointment per month and being part of group decisions. Can we talk about how to divide this more evenly among all of us? You've validated why they asked, you have qualities that would help. Declined clearly, can't be primary coordinator. Offered what's sustainable, 1 appointment monthly, plus shared decisions. Invited collaboration rather than just dumping the problem back. Friendship example, declining emotional labor. A friend calls nightly to process their anxiety about their relationship. It's affecting your own well-being. Without humaneness, I can't keep doing this. You're draining me. Get therapy. With humaneness, I care about you, and I want to support you. I'm realizing these nightly calls are becoming hard for me to sustain. I'm carrying a lot of your anxiety with me and it's affecting my own mental health. I can't keep up this frequency. What would help is if we could talk once a week, and in between, you could work with a therapist who's trained for this kind of support. I know therapy feels like a big step, but I genuinely think you need more than friendship can provide here. You've affirmed the relationship, I care about you. Been honest about impact, affecting my mental health. Offered what's sustainable, once weekly, not nightly. Explained why professional help is needed, not because you don't care, but because they need expertise you don't have. When humaneness fails, the person who won't hear it. Let's be realistic. Sometimes you offer humaneness, you're clear, compassionate, reasonable, and the other person responds with anger, guilt-tripping, or escalation. How could you do this to me? I thought you cared about me. Fine. I'll remember this when you need something. This isn't a failure of your humaneness. It's evidence that the person isn't interested in a mutual relationship, they're interested in compliance. When humaneness fails, you have 2 options. Option 1, offer it once more, even more explicitly. I hear that you're upset. I do care about you, that's why I'm being honest instead of saying yes and then resenting you. The boundary I've set is firm, but it's not about you being unimportant to me. If they continue to reject this, move to option 2. Option 2, disengage with dignity. I've explained my boundary and my reasons. I'm not going to keep defending it. I hope you can accept this, but if you can't, I understand, and I'll need to step back from the conversation for now." Then follow through. End the call, leave the room, stop responding to messages about this topic. Humaneness doesn't mean absorbing abuse to prove you're kind. It means offering dignity as far as the other person will receive it, and protecting yourself when they won't. The paradox: humaneness strengthens boundaries. This seems backwards. Surely being warm and acknowledging makes you vulnerable. Surely the firm boundary needs to be cold to be taken seriously? No. The opposite is true. When you combine firmness with humaneness, you take away every excuse for the other person to dismiss you. They can't say you're being cruel, unreasonable, or uncaring, because you've demonstrably shown care whilst holding the line. The boundary becomes harder to attack because it's wrapped in dignity for both parties. Compare these scenarios. Scenario A, firm but cold. "Boss, I need you to work this weekend." You: "No. I don't work weekends." "Boss, that's not really a team player attitude." You've given them an opening. They can frame you as difficult, inflexible, not committed. Scenario B, firm with humaneness. "Boss, I need you to work this weekend." You: "I understand this feels urgent. I keep weekends clear to maintain sustainable work pace during the week. It actually makes me more effective Monday to Friday. Is there a way to address this within business hours, or can it wait until Monday?" Boss: "Much harder to argue with this. You've shown you understand the pressure, you've explained your reasoning, it serves your work quality, not just your preference, and you've invited problem solving. If they push anyway, they're the unreasonable one, not you." Practicing humaneness daily. Humaneness isn't something you switch on when you need to set a boundary. It's a quality you cultivate in all interactions, so that when boundary moments come, humaneness is already your default mode. Daily practice. When someone's struggling, notice it, even if you can't fix it. When you disagree, start by finding what you agree with. When you're irritated, pause to consider what might be driving their behavior. When you're right, be kind about it. These small acts build the muscle of seeing others' humanity clearly, even when you're saying no to them. And here's what happens over time: people learn to trust your numbers. Because when you say no with humaneness, they know it's not about rejecting them, it's about protecting something legitimate. And when you say yes, they know it's genuine, not grudging. You become someone people can trust. Not because you never refuse, but because your refusals and acceptances both come from integrity. The mechanism: why this removes guilt. Guilt often comes from the fear that you're being selfish or cruel. But when you've offered humaneness, when you've genuinely acknowledged the other person, been clear without being harsh, and offered what you reasonably can, you know you haven't been cruel. You've honored both their dignity and your limits. That's not selfishness. That's wisdom. And wisdom doesn't apologize. The practice of dignified refusal. We've covered substantial ground. Let me distill it to something simple. Saying no isn't the opposite of compassion. It's the prerequisite for sustainable compassion. The person who can't say no eventually has nothing left to give. They burn out, they grow resentful, they start avoiding the very people they wanted to help. Their yeses become hollow because they're given from depletion, not from genuine choice. The person who can say no, clearly, kindly, firmly, actually has something to offer when they say yes. Their yeses mean something because they come from capacity, not guilt. Confucius didn't teach self-erasure. He taught knowing what's fitting in each relationship. He taught holding to your principles. He taught maintaining humaneness even in refusal. These aren't just ancient concepts. They're practical tools for the most common modern problem: too many demands, too little time, and the crushing guilt of disappointing people you care about. You've now learnt 5 practices. 1. Know what's fitting, understand what you actually owe in each relationship. 2. The grammar of no, 3 levels of refusal match to context. 3. Distinguish obligation from manipulation, don't confuse guilt with genuine duty. 4. Build your moral inventory, pre-decide your non-negotiables. 5. Cultivate humaneness in your refusal, hold boundaries without losing compassion. You can't apply all 5 perfectly starting tomorrow. That's not how this works. Your practice for the next 7 days. Choose one practice. Just one. Maybe it's identifying what's fitting for different relationships, writing down what you actually owe your boss versus your friend versus your sibling. Maybe it's prescripting one recurring no you struggle with. Maybe it's spotting one manipulation pattern someone uses on you and naming it clearly. Whichever you choose, practice it consistently for 7 days. Not perfectly. Consistently. Then notice. When did you use it? What happened? What surprised you about the response you got, or about your own feelings? Pay attention to the moments when saying no felt easier than expected. And pay attention to the moments when it felt impossible, those reveal where you need more work. Because here's what Confucius understood, and what remains true today. Your life belongs to you first. Not in the sense that you owe nothing to anyone, you do. Relationships create obligations. That's how communities survive. But those obligations have limits. And knowing those limits, holding to them clearly and kindly, is how you build a life you can actually sustain. The person who can't say no isn't virtuous. They're collapsing. And a collapsed person can't hold up anyone else. The person who can say no, who knows what's fitting, holds to their principles, and maintains their humaneness, is someone others can actually rely on. Because when they say yes, it means something. When they show up, they're truly there. When they help, it comes from strength, not guilt. That person becomes a pillar others can lean on. Not because they never refuse, but because they know what they can genuinely carry. You can become that person. Not by being perfect. By being honest about your limits and compassionate in how you communicate them. The master proved it was possible 2,500 years ago, teaching his students to hold their position like the North Star, not through force, but through clarity. The question is, will you prove him right this week?